Hello, everybody. It is nice to be here with you today. I was going to say it was nice to see you, but that clearly is not necessarily the situation. But we are super excited about today's session about the power of partnering. My name is Eric Day. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Eric Day. I am the Senior Vice President and General Manager for Small Business at Dell Technologies. So I have the most amazing job at Dell because I get to work with our smallest customers. And as many of you know, in many of your industries, small customers turn into medium-sized customers turn into large customers, and large customers turn into even bigger enterprises, right? I think of people or companies like Alphabet, which is now Google. They were our small business customer at Dell Technologies. They are now a large customer. Kendra Scott, many of you ladies out there that like Kendra Scott jewelry, Kendra Scott was one of our customers in small business, and now they are a much bigger customer. You see where this is going. My gay job is I'm also the executive global chair of our Pride ERG at Dell Technologies, and I am a very proud board member and now vice chair of our board of directors at Out and Equal. I was specifically just elated to have this team that I'm about to introduce, or have them introduce themselves, ask me to moderate the session, because in my history, almost 20-year history with Out and Equal, the biggest question I get every single year is about how do we do an ROI on this whole crazy gay job thing? Like, can ERGs and BRGs really return dollars to the P&L of your company? Well, believe it or not, over the last couple of years, this team of people on this call have tried desperately to figure that out, and we are bringing you today what we think is a pretty creative solution. Now, I won't speak about numbers because I don't want to get them wrong, but this partnership that Dell has created through our Pride ERG first, and now through our small business division, because of our outreach both to the national gay and lesbian and bisexual transgender chamber of commerce, as well as the local level, we have been able to partner to drive events and ultimately drive special offers to the membership of both the national chamber as well as many local chambers, which I think in some cases are more intimate and actually more targeted as you go to that local level. And because of that, we have built a multi-million-dollar revenue stream with the members of these Chamber of Commerce, focusing on our support of the LGBT community that are owning small businesses, and they're helping the United States economy grow and thrive. Because whether or not you believe it's a cliche term or not, I will tell you right now that small business is the backbone of the economy in the United States, and minority-owned businesses are opening businesses at a 2-to-1 rate of non-marginalized communities. So whether that's LGBTQ, whether that is women, whether that is Hispanic, or whether that is African American, they are absolutely growing businesses at a much quicker rate than others. And so this piece of work is so incredibly important. And we are so excited to tell you about that journey and ask some really good questions. And we welcome you all to the session, and especially to our Executive Forum members who are joining us that were Executive Forum attendees earlier this year that was postponed until now. So we welcome you all to the session. So let's get kicked off. I'd like to go to each panel member to have them introduce themselves. I would like to start with ladies first, obviously. Nikki, over to you. Quick introduction, and then I'll go through some rules.
All right, great. Thank you, Eric. So Nikki Gibson, my pronouns are she, her. I'm a consultant on the HR compliance team, and this month I celebrate my 21-year anniversary with Dell. I like to tell everyone I started right out of kindergarten. It's great. So I've been extremely fortunate to have worked with amazing leaders who have supported me and encouraged me to take risk and to take opportunity, and most importantly, to bring my full self to work, at work and in the Nashville community. So I'm thrilled to be with you all today to share with you how ERGs can generate revenue. I'm also, my day job, like I said, is in HR, but my gay job is I lead the North America Pride Employee Resource Group, and I started the Tennessee chapter, which I'll talk a little bit about in a few minutes. Thank you, Eric.
Thanks, Nikki. Mobilaji, will go to you next before our honored guests. So Mobilaji, over to you, if you could introduce yourself to everyone.
Thanks, Eric. Mobolaji Sokumbi, pronouns are he, him. I oversee strategic partnership.
Well, it looks like we have lost Mobolaji for just a second. We'll let him figure out his technology challenges, and over to our honored guest.
And the Center for Entrepreneurship.
Mobolaji, are you there with us? We heard you come back in. Okay.
Yeah.
You paused out for a little bit. If you could start over, that would be great.
Once again, name is Mobolaji Sokumbi. Pronouns are he and him. I oversee strategic partnerships and the Center for Entrepreneurship for Dell Small Business in North America. My key focus, when you look at the team I lead at Dell, my key focus is to empower entrepreneurs and small business owners to do more, just to keep it that simple. So again, excited about this opportunity, and I'm looking forward to a wonderful discussion.
And through technology, clearly, Mobolaji, right? That's what our big agreement is that we sell technology to those small businesses. And speaking of, over to our honored guest from the Nashville Chamber, Joe, over to you, please.
Hi, everybody. Joe Woolley. I'm CEO of the Nashville Chamber, LGBT Chamber of Commerce. My pronouns are he, him. This is my first Out and Equal conference. I'm a huge fan of Out and Equal and love the work that they've been doing for a long time. It's an honor to be here today, and I want to thank our member and our friends at Dell for including us in this program and being amazing members. Thank you specifically to Nikki for being so awesome. She's a board member of the Nashville LGBT Chamber of Commerce, and I say that not because she's my boss, but because she truly is so awesome. I want to make sure that you all know that she is a finalist for the Corporate Advocate of the Year Audi Award tomorrow. Fingers crossed. I am so excited to hear if you win, and we are so proud of you. And thank you for everything you've done for the Chamber and our partnership with Dell. I've been CEO for 2 years now. I was president of the board before that, and actually brought Nikki on the board. I was so glad to do that, and she's brought so much to that. I rolled off for a year and then got back involved when, I guess I love you guys saying your gay job and your day job. Mine's one and the same. I applied for the CEO position when our former CEO moved out of the city, and I thought, I love doing the work as president. Why don't I get paid for it? Make it a real job. So advocacy is in my blood. It's my passion, and I'm lucky enough to have a job that I get to work on this stuff every day.
Great. Thank you so much, Joe. And finally, not to introduce, but we have got some great administrative and ally support from our friend Dan Freilish out of Nashville as well. Hi, Dan. Dan is going to help us navigate some of the housekeeping rules really quickly. So please use the chat function to chat with one another, to have fun dialogue with one another. But please don't put your questions in there, because as you have that fun dialogue, we cannot keep up with the questions. So if you could use the poll feature to ask the questions, that would be great, because then Dan can ask myself and the panelists a little bit later your questions. And that is the way that we would like to run the show today. So again, thank you so much for being here. We are going to jump right in. And my first question is to my good friend, Nikki. Nikki, to kick us off, can you share how this partnership with the Nashville Chamber started? And ultimately talk a little bit about how it's evolved.
Yeah, so happy to. So, so we at Dell, we launched 4 employee resource groups in 2002. And Eric, you'll remember this very well. You started the Pride group. But at that time, ERGs weren't outside of corporate headquarters. So where we had locations, there were individuals and pockets of folks who were head of, or in charge of rather, helping to provide learning opportunities and to share information around cultural observances. And here in Tennessee, we had 4 locations at Dell, and I was selected to support, from a Pride standpoint, to support the LGBTQ community for sharing around cultural observances. In 2007, we launched the Pride chapter here in Tennessee, and I was fortunate enough to be asked to lead the Pride chapter here in launching. And so for the first couple of years, we had we really struggled, to be perfectly honest, on getting engagement. Folks weren't coming to our events. Executive leaders and our senior leadership team, they were very supportive of our events, but we weren't getting a whole lot of folks who were actually doing the work along with me to share in the work. So I was getting very frustrated, and I looked externally to see what resources I had. I hadn't ever started an ERG before. Dell was my first experience in corporate America, so I was really struggling with what to do, and I wanted us to be successful. So that's when I reached out to the Nashville LGBT Chamber of Commerce, and they were pivotal in helping me be a very strong leader, making sure that I was engaging the right way in the community and internally. Several different key ways in doing that we'll talk about throughout this session, but I really needed the connection to other individuals in Nashville who were doing very similar things as me. So the Nashville LGBT Chamber helped me with that. I'm not ashamed to admit that when I joined the chamber, I joined at the networking level, $100. It cost me $100 to join the Nashville LGBT Chamber, but it gave me those networking opportunities to meet people in the local community and to start building that relationship with the chamber. And as Joe mentioned, I now sit on the board, and I'm very excited. I'm going into my 3rd year of being on the board for the Nashville Chamber, and it's been one of the best experiences I've ever had.
Thank you, Nikki. So, Joe, clearly, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the Nashville Chamber specifically. What makes it different from the other chambers? And I know that this is going to go off a little bit off script, but I think this is important too because you and I've talked about it. But talk to me a little bit about, just so the audience understands, the differences between the support you do on the small business level and the importance of that corporate sponsorship, right? Because you think, wait a second, the Chamber of Commerce is supposed to be helping small businesses. Why this important push to have large businesses in the community be members? So if you could just talk a little bit about that as well, that would be fantastic. Oh, you're on mute, Joe.
It always gets you. I mute it and then I forgot. Sorry. But I'm happy to talk about that. So just a little bit about the chamber background-wise, and then we'll get into the types of membership and the work that we do. The Nashville LGBT Chamber has been around for 22 years. It was formed in 1998, but it was formed as the Nashville Association of Professional People. It, in all sense of the word, was a closeted organization, an LGBT but closeted organization. Because in 1998, it was such a different world. You all know that. People were worried about getting fired if LGBT, gay, or lesbian was in an email coming into your corporate email. So a totally different time, different name. Started as a networking organization. We went to businesses that would have us and traded business cards and connected. Mm-hmm. We became a Chamber of Commerce in 2004. And we hired staff in 2011. And that is how most local LGBT chambers form, as a networking group, then a volunteer organization, and then when they hire staff, it goes to that next level. We really focused on advocacy, and I'm going to talk a lot about advocacy coming up in 2015, and that has really, along with the growth of Nashville since 2015, really amplified our Chamber of Commerce, minority Chamber of Commerce in our city, but one of the top business associations in the state. The growth of our chamber at 500 plus members now mirrors the growth of Nashville and the economy here. And corporate support is key to that. You ask about why is corporate support important? Most local chambers are helping and educating and advocating for small businesses. Yes, all of that's true, but without corporate support, a business association like our chamber can't exist. We need the corporate support, the corporate guidance, the help. Otherwise, we can't do our job. So corporate support is key. And when it comes to advocacy, it is key. So what does the chamber do? We say we advocate, educate, and connect. Advocacy is what a chamber should be doing for its members. It's the key to what a chamber is. We did not advocate until around 2015 when we really took on some policies because we were ready And the leadership saw that, and I saw this coming. I'm a founder of our equality group here in the South. I love that Out and Equal has the Southern Strategy Initiative, because Nashville is a blue bubble in a very red state. And I saw early on, I'm a founder of our equality statewide group, one of 5, and we were taking loss after loss with the grassroots advocacy around LGBT issues. But I saw the corporate support was there. And if we could get corporate America to speak out and use their voice here in Tennessee, we could push back on some of this discriminatory language. So we took on advocacy issues. And again, that corporate support's so important because they're the amplification. They're the voice in the room that gets you noticed, that got us to the table. Around advocacy, we have city advocacy, and then we have statewide advocacy. On the local level, the city level, that really affects our small businesses, our LGBT-owned small businesses. Nashville, 2 years ago, became the first city in the South and the 13th city in America to recognize LGBT business enterprise certified businesses in city procurement. We're very proud of that. We had been working on that for years, and it finally came to fruition. Dell was part of that announcement. Dell was integral in giving the data of supplier diversity and minority business spend and LGBT policies, along with many other corporate partners of ours and members of ours, to the city so we could build this case. When that happened, Dell and several other corporate members stood with us on that announcement. The other local initiative that they've helped on is self-ID. And I know, Nikki, you just came from a self-ID discussion. Our city is looking at self-ID, and Dell, again, being a leader in our corporate members, has been able to give the city information on self-ID, why it's important, how to do it safely and correctly. So we use our corporate members as guides in a lot of ways in the advocacy that we do. And then you turn to the state, and a corporate member of ours brought us to the table of economic community development for the first time ever, and said, where's the LGBT community and where's the LGBT chamber? We want to, if we're moving from New York City to Nashville, we want to know that LGBT people are protected and represented. And we came to that table and we've not given it up. And the more relocations from corporate America that we had to Nashville, the bigger role we have played. And AllianceBernstein is the company that brought us to that table, but then Amazon and Oracle, and I can go down a list of corporations, have kept us there. And I will tell you, without corporate support and this message about open and equal, having Tennessee stay open and equal and a good place, an accepting place to do business, we would have a number of anti-LGBT laws that would have been passed. Corporate support has stopped bathroom bills continuing to be passed. North Carolina is that example. The chamber up at the Capitol, we do an open letter. We have over 50 corporate signers this last year and over 400 small businesses that say, don't harm Tennessee, keep it open and welcoming for everybody to live and work, and Dell's a signer of that. So corporate support in a local chamber, especially around advocacy, is key. Education-wise, we offer lots of educational opportunities, but that really goes to our small business members. I'd say the education that we give to our corporate members is around ERG policy, which is how Nikki got involved with the chamber. We get everybody in a room, all our corporate members in a room every other month, and they talk about what they're doing. So if you're a ERG just starting out, you get to come and say, what's the first thing to do? Or we're getting pushback when we put a table in the quad. How did you work around that? And companies like Dell and Cracker Barrel and Amazon and AllianceBernstein get to answer those questions because they're at the top of the game in the ERG field. That collaboration to me is key, and it's one of the most important things we offer to our corporate members. And then connect. We connect corporate America to the LGBT community. We connect through events and networking events. So, we have Dell reps come and talk about how great the Dell system is and help our small business members and our networking members get a new laptop, or find a new bank if you're a bank. You know, that connection and community building, but also the connection to the city and policy or the community at large. My favorite connection piece with corporate America and the community comes from the Pride in Business meetings that we hold for our corporate members. And you'll have an LGBT group say, hey, we're doing a makeup drive to help trans teens. And 5 companies in that room were like, we want to get involved. We'll give volunteers. We'll give makeup. We'll give money. And being that connector, we really pride ourselves in that. We, as a chamber, have had to really pitch ourselves, though, to show the importance of this. And Dell has been a backer of us and backs us as a strong corporate member, because Nikki wasn't the only corporate member that joined at $100 networking level. We had Amazon come in at $300, which is a small business level member. But we had never said, this is a corporate amount, and this is a small business amount, and this is a networking person that just wants to be involved. Chambers, and I push the other 52 affiliate chambers across the country to do this, because we haven't always done a good job, is be proud of the work that we do, and it's important, and here's what it costs. And corporate support at those levels allow us to do all of this work. And we're really proud of the corporate growth in that area. And I would just say to all the corporations on the Zoom is, think of an investment in a chamber. It's a year-long investment in a number of different ways. And I ask our corporate members, I love Pride. I love our Pride organization, and I love the Pride Festival. But you've got one weekend a year where you buy rainbow merchandise and you march in a parade and it builds your team, yes. But a chamber membership is a year-long investment in a number of different initiatives that help your employees and your corporation.
Yeah. And Joe, I know that, I want to stay on you for just a little bit, and I know this is going off a little script again, but I think it's important. You talked about being a certified business enterprise and a certified LGBT business enterprise, which I think is really critical here. And I want to swing it back on the importance of that and why you think it's important to be certified, which is a little bit more work from the small business. But I think it's important because you brought in this advocacy push. And we think about, I remember when the bathroom bill was being passed in Texas, one of the biggest pieces I had with some of these pro-business Republicans, which there are a ton of them in Texas, the way that we got it off the floor was I pushed this kind of pro-business, right? The more you pass things like bathroom bills, the more unlikely new businesses will want to come to Texas and rebuild. I'm assuming the same thing is happening in Nashville, which to everybody on the phone working in different companies that want to sell and have small businesses grow and potentially use their own services and things, it kind of is this full circle. Can you talk about that just a little bit?
Yeah, you're hitting the key on certification. So
yeah.
We as a local chamber, an affiliate chamber, again, I said there's 52 affiliates. There is the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce, the NGLCC, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. We are an affiliate of them, which means we talk to each other, we pay dues, we share some initiatives, but it's not like we're part of them. We're our own organization. We work some on advocacy together, like they gave us the data that we needed to push LGBT certification here. But those were the personal relationships here of us saying this is why it's important. And then the most critical thing NGLCC does with its affiliates is they are the certifier. So we do not certify businesses. LGBT-owned businesses join our chamber, and then the NGLCC waives their certification fee because they're a member of our chamber. They walk them through that certification process. And then when they are certified, we at the local level help them take advantage of that certification. And that has been the key here in Nashville, which is key. So the NFL draft actually kicked this off because it showed they do a Business Connect spend. And it was a time where I could then say, all LGBT-owned businesses, you haven't got certified because you don't see a need for it. Like, what would it get you? it will get you a contract with the NFL because they're looking to minority spend before they look to anything else. That jump-started it. Then the city said, we're going to recognize it. And then what that was able to do was capture the attention of the LGBT business community to say, I want to get certified. We have 35 certifications in a year. It's like unheard of because it primed this pump. What is key and what is the best return on investment for LGBT certified businesses is not the NFL draft or Metro contracts, which are great. It's our corporate partners who, we're their connection to LGBT small businesses. Nissan, for example, they do people are like, well, what would I do with Nissan? I am a florist or I'm a caterer. Well, you don't have to make a windshield or a tire to work with Nissan. You can make you can do flowers for their lobby.
Showrooms,
you can take your food truck out to their Food Truck Friday.
Right.
And you count in their diversity spend.
That's right. And on top of that, you can then get supplied with PCs from Dell, or you can be supplied from sanitizer from P&G, or, I mean, and it's this kind of whole secular thing that you're talking about, right?
Yep.
It's how the connection works.
It's those opportunities and that education.
Yeah.
Something that we really work on right now, and I just want to plug this and have people think of it because it's really hitting right now in Nashville, but in COVID, in any type of response. When we talk about diversity spend, people think race, women, women-owned business, Black or Hispanic-owned business, and we think of it of gender and race. We have really pushed here at the Nashville LGBT Chamber that we have to be included in minority or diversity spend, and it needs to be specific to LGBT. There's some that push back and say, you don't belong here. I think they're saying that to white gay men, but I have to remind them, I'm not here as a white gay man. I'm representing the most diverse community there is, the LGBTQ+ community that has every race, gender, religion, socioeconomic background. Everybody's part of the LGBT community, and we have the marginalized of the marginalized. And right now with COVID funding, our Black LGBT-owned businesses, it is not equitable. We are representing them, the marginalized of the marginalized, in the equitable spend and recovery to COVID. And we do that with our small businesses as well. We have over 35 Black LGBT-owned businesses that have a home with us that do not have a home with other Black business enterprises. And this needs to, we as a community and the work that we're doing right now really need to talk about the marginalized of the marginalized and make sure the marginalized of the marginalized are being represented and having access to opportunity.
I mean, I couldn't agree more. And the selfish side of me that wants to continue to ensure that, I mean, the most two important accesses that you can give to a small business are capital and technology, right? And so I think having organizations like you are so critical in ensuring that we're providing those two things, which is why I kind of want to switch gears a little bit. And I want to talk about how these relationships with the local chamber and the national chamber both helps our Pride ERGs in corporate America and in our corporations, as well as to the business. So I'm going to quickly turn to Mobilaji first. I want you to tell the audience exactly what you do within my organization, and what that has meant to ultimately the relationship with the national chambers, the local chambers, and some of the programming that you have done in order to provide that access to technology to our minority-owned small businesses. Mobilaji?
Thank you, Eric. Joe, I'm not sure if you saw some of the comments in the chat when you were talking about like everything you have going on in Nashville. Allison Hansen said, he's so serious the city has outgrown the state, and I have to agree. There's a lot going on out there in Nashville. So, again, thanks, Eric. Like Joe said, the corporate support is so important, right? It's imperative. And so we've done a lot, internally at Dell, just to kind of like stand up the Pride ERG, but wanted to make sure that we're reaching out, to the LGBTQ+ communities, right? Both at the national and affiliate level, as Joe mentioned. And so when you look at internally what we've done at Dell is we looked inwards and took a look at our strategic partnership program to figure out how we can establish partnerships that can, support the LGBTQ plus community from a technology standpoint, but more importantly, also from a capital standpoint. One of the key feedbacks we often get from entrepreneurs and small business owners in the community is the fact that, they're strapped for cash, right? I mean, especially now in the midst of the pandemic, small businesses are looking for ways to make ends meet, not just for themselves, but also for their staff. So it's imperative, for us at Dell to make sure we have a program that can fully support, not just, again, the NGLCC, but also that can support at the affiliate level. So a couple of things that we've done internally, we've looked at two pillars, our strategic partnership pillar and also like our supplier diversity pillar. On the supplier diversity end, a key thing we've done, and I really miss, the annual conference, that we have with the NGLCC, right? We had it last year in sunny Tampa. But one of the key things that we did last year is like Dell partook, in the NGLCC matchmaking conferences. And this avenue was great for us because we got a chance, to actually engage with a number of LGBTQ plus businesses to figure out what makes them tick, what's important to them, learn about the industry, learn about how we can help them out in terms of, to further promote what they do and to empower them on their journey. That's one. Also on that front of, the things that we'll be able to do with our supply diversity team is we actually launched a mentorship program a couple of years ago. And a couple of folks on that team actually, took the owners, to make sure that we engage with certified LGBTEs, over the past few years to give them advice in areas like, putting together a business plan, how to pitch your business plan, because they're pitch contests all over the place. How to hire the right staff, how to build a world-class sales organization. And this has been going on for the past couple of years to make sure that we're able to mentor business owners and entrepreneurs within the NGLCC space to make sure that they feel empowered, to make the right decisions around their business. And an ongoing piece of this whole supply diversity program also is, an event we recently had, where, we got together in conjunction with the NGLCC, to sponsor like a sip and pitch contest. The sip and pitch contest was a very laid back, contest, right? Where entrepreneurs came, small businesses came and just talked about, what they do, their challenges, how they're coping in the midst of the pandemic, like prior to the pandemic and currently during the pandemic. And so it was a great avenue for not just Dell to sort of offer some support, but also to share with the community how they can expect to count on us. And they can expect to count on us. Why? Because we have 500 dedicated tech advisors in the States to support the LGBTQ plus community. When it comes to any of their needs, right, they can count on Dell to support them. And then the final piece to this in terms of how we do support is, again, I'm so glad that Joe talked about the whole affiliate piece, right, and the national piece. To truly engage NGLCC members, to truly engage LGBTQ plus entrepreneurs and small business owners, things have to be done at the affiliate level, right? At the grassroots level, right? We need to really get granular. So get them behind, the awesome work that Joe is doing out there in Nashville, and also Tina Cannon. I have to give Tina Cannon and Austin a shout out. Get them behind an event they put together in June, which is the Pride in Local Music was important to Dell. We wanted to throw out corporate support behind it, not to elevate Dell, and push a sales message, but simply to say, hey, for any of your needs, we got you, right? If you want to talk about financing for your tech, we got you. If you want to simply have a conversation with us about what you need to do in the midst of the pandemic when it comes to technology, we got you. So supporting at that local level was very important to us. And when we do engage our NGLCC members, or when we do engage LGBTQ plus entrepreneurs, making it very clear that when they come to Dell for any of their technology needs, they can expect to save some funds. They can expect to get a dedicated tech advisor going forward that can work with them on any of their tech needs. But also to let them know that when it comes to their financing, right, they don't have to burn through their cash, right? We do have internally at Dell a Dell Financial Services team that can provide the right recommendation whether they need to lease or whether they need to finance, and we've always been able to find a way to make it work. So these are the different layers in terms of our partnership program that we've put in place with the NGLCC at the national level, but also more importantly with the affiliates at the regional level.
Mobilize, that's so great. I mean, I think, again, similar to what we were talking about, Joe, it's like this full circle experience, right? Because of the access that we get to these members, we're able to do the important work, which is, educate them and tell them about why tech is important in their business, and do some of these programs, introduce them to our procurement division, because a lot of these small businesses want to work with a major institution. And on top of that, we're giving them discounts, and we're giving them better priced tech. We're giving them financing options to really make it easy to even help them with their business credit, which I think is a tremendous thing as well. Now, that is a true description of how we take our Pride ERG, our relationships with our LGBTQ Chamber of Commerce's, and really try to build an ROI around our work. But that relationship with the ERG is so important. So Nikki, can you just talk a little bit about why that's been important? Mobilogy said, hey, we've added now Boston or New England as well as Austin, which are our corporate headquarters. So Nashville, Austin, and New England. Talk about how that has worked and how that has helped the overall relationship with the Pride ERGs.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. So, I shared earlier that when we joined the timeline of our joining the Nashville Chamber. So fast forward to 2019, we had an opportunity as a Pride ERG, our leadership team, myself, Bonnie McGuire, and some others that lead the community engagement advocacy piece of our pillar work. We had an opportunity to pitch to Mobilogy and to you, Eric. So Eric, you were very familiar with our relationship with the Nashville Chamber, intimately familiar actually, because I think I pounded it in every chance I got an opportunity to chat with you about it, about the importance of the relationship. So you were like, hey, look, just pitch it to Mobilogy. Let's see what we can do. So we had an opportunity to share with Mobilogy and his team the importance of the strategic partnerships with the Nashville Chamber and how we could build that out across the United States where we have chapters. So we did that. We worked closely with Mobilogy to build out a budget and a plan. And then we came back and we said, here's the dollar investment that small business could do to invest in joining the affiliate chapter. So we joined, and thank you, Eric, again for that investment, but we joined the Austin LGBT Chamber of Commerce and the Boston LGBT Chamber of Commerce. And these are two key areas where Dell has a very large presence, and we have local ERG engagement to participate in a lot of the same programs that are here in Nashville. So the connecting with other business leaders, the opportunities to train and to share our best practices and things like that, and to get involved in advocacy. And that is huge this year. That's, we're all talking about how we can engage and support our local communities. So here in Nashville, the advocacy piece has been huge. We participate in local lobby days. We are engaging with the mayor's office as much as we can. We were one of the first signers for Tennessee Thrives. So it's the affiliate chapters that give us this opportunity. Mm-hmm. In Austin, we're working very closely with Texas Competes and with Equality Texas. In Boston, we'll be doing things similar. So it's just really building out how we on the ground, these grassroots efforts to get involved locally. It's really building that out and making sure that we're being really strong in those partnerships. The other thing that's been instrumental for us, so at Dell, we have a very structured program with respect to our employee resource group, our leadership architect, and there are 4 key pillars that we have to meet. We are held to produce on these. We have performance metrics, just like you would if you were an individual contributor. One of our pillars is around business innovation. And when I met with Mobilogy last year, I said, look, this is how, as an employee resource group, we are going to be able to support our business innovation pillar. And we set out a very strategic initiative to ensure that we are joining chambers where we can, that we are engaging and we're sharing best practices. A perfect example of how we are connecting chambers is we are a member of the Utah LGBT Chamber of Commerce, and that chamber they're still growing, right? They're still engaging locally and working with businesses. And so I reached out to Joe and I said, Joe, we've got a great opportunity as a Nashville chamber to engage with the Utah Chamber and to share what you all are doing to connect business leaders, to train, to do all these things to support small businesses. So Joe has been working with them and sharing about how the Nashville LGBT Chamber is built out and what our focuses are. So, internally it's supporting us from the return on investment. We all know that, when you're measured, when you're able to show the proof on investment as an employee resource group, that it gets you more investment in return, right? So for us specifically, it was the strategic partnership with the Nashville Chamber that helped
Yeah,
us
and
do
so
that.
and Nikki, I'm just going to go into kind of my segment. I know you're going to kind of hit me up, but I want to talk to the audience about this is where the rubber meets the road. For those of you that have joined this session because you want to understand what Nikki just talked about and how this has made money for Dell, I'm going to go into that a little bit because it was really important what she said. She was individually trying to, through a very small Pride budget, and all of you on the phone know that D&I and where you get your ERG budgets come from, they're very, very small. And as we thought about expanding our relationship with the LGBT chamber, there was not enough budget, right? There's just not enough budget when you look at all the chambers, et cetera. And so the kicker for me, and this was just, I think, serendipitous, I run small business sales at Dell. I'm also the head of the Pride ERG. I'm like, wow, this is like nirvana for me, right? Because as long as you can show me that for every dollar I invest in the LGBT chamber, I get X amount of revenue, then there's no reason why this can't continue. So this relationship was born out of, I will give Mobilaji whatever budget he wants to continue to invest into the LGBT and as well as other strategic partnerships. But with this one specifically, as long as we can make sure that we're getting to the members. And so what happens, just so that everybody knows, is that there is everything from marketing dollars that we'll share with them. There is a revenue share on anything they sell to their members that they will receive, et cetera, et cetera. So there's an entire program around this so that we can ensure that the ROI is always there. Because every time a PC is bought or a monitor is bought or a server is bought or a piece of storage is bought, depending how big these LGBTEs become, that is more money that we can spend in investing and growing that relationship. So it truly is where something was born out of the ERG, a relationship was born. We saw that there was a business imperative there where we could get technology to these LGBTEs, right? It also has guaranteed a relationship that we have. We just sponsored, as Nikki and Mobilaji had talked about, we had this amazing Austin, Nashville event where I got to speak in front of hundreds of members around this amazing music, this virtual music concert that we had, and just saw that a technology company really sponsoring these minority-owned businesses, which is a huge part of my entire small business strategy because of what I said. What is the business problem I'm trying to solve? The business problem I'm trying to solve is that there are 2-to-1 minority-owned businesses opening businesses faster than majority-owned businesses. So there is a huge benefit for me to solve this problem by these sponsorships. But on top of that, like the cherry on top is that I get all this Pride advocacy work. How do you end anti-LGBT legislation? Well, you go with the Chamber of Commerce and you talk about how bad it is for business and that you won't have all these LGBTEs that will want to open businesses in your city because this is horrible legislation. So why would we ever do that? And then it just is this kind of full circle approach on how you can ensure that these businesses are using technology. And I do love going to an LGBTE and seeing a nice, beautiful Dell computer up there, every time I walk into one. So it is a win-win-win-win-win-win all across the edge. And Joe, I just want to go to you because I can see you as excited as I am about this topic. So I want to hand over the mic to you around the benefit that you see in this and how exciting it is when both your businesses are, gaining from this as well as one of your big corporate sponsors.
Yeah, I wanted to specifically talk about, paying for a membership or paying for these type of things at ROI. Dell does it great. We've worked with them, worked with you all for a number of years now on what membership in dollars look like. And that's the thing that we do through our corporate ERG group is talk about many of you, the majority of corporations come to a local chamber probably around ERG questions. They want to get involved in a Pride in Business group and talk with others that are doing the same type of things in corporate America. But we've talked about all the different things that we do, and Dell and other members of ours do it really well, where they look at the membership and what they get for it, and then take it from different parts of different pieces of budget. So, you know, there's a marketing aspect, there's an employee resource group HR aspect, there is sales with Dell and being able to market and reach the community. Most chambers of commerce are 501c6, well, chambers of commerce are 501c6s, but they usually have a foundation involved with them as well. So our membership that we advocate with, and you're a member of our chamber, that is a membership fee at the different levels. And then we also offer sponsorships to events. So you could be the presenting sponsor of our business awards and reach, you know, 1,000 people in Nashville in a ballroom and get to speak to them. And that's a sponsorship. So we, you know, corporate support looks different. To the event that we're talking about, Pride in Business, I shared it in the chat, but the Austin LGBT Chamber of Commerce, affiliate chamber of NGLCC, we do a lot. I'm, you know, good friends with their CEO, and we connected with Dell with Eric at the last NGLCC conference and said, here's the work we're doing locally. Here's our reps that we're already doing things with. Let's talk about our relationship. That relationship grew into, when COVID hit, Nashville and Austin, known for live music, we partnered together and created Pride in Local Music. It was an online fundraiser to support LGBT artists in both cities. And we're like, who is the best sponsor of this? It's Dell. Yeah. You're headquartered in Austin. You have a huge office here. You've got a relationship with us. It was an amazing night. Thousands of people watched this performance. I've shared it in there. And then you guys talked about your small business support, gave away a system to each chamber, to the member, a member in each chamber, to the community, really. You signed up for it on the website. And then throughout the program, we built in you talking about your work around Pride, your work around your ERG, and your small business support. It is the perfect example of what collaboration with your chamber, wherever you are in the country, if you have multiple locations, can do. We're really proud of that, and thank you again for supporting that event.
There's a lot more to do, that's for sure.
And speaking creative, I mean, I do want to stress, corporations should be creative in how they pay for membership. A membership and then sponsorships and different parts of the business that are benefiting from that membership and that relationship with your local chamber.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, and I want everybody on the line to understand, yes, the goal is for Dell to earn more revenue, et cetera, right? That is the result. But I will tell you the joy in this relationship is that like I said, technology is such a vital part of being able to be a successful small business in 2020. The opportunity that we get to teach these LGBTEs about technology is outstanding, and the light bulbs that we see go off. And so Mobolaji, I want to go back to you to talk about 2021 and a little bit about our strategy, what we think we're going to do to work with Nikki, to work with Joe, to work with some of the affiliate chapters around the growth that we see that we can do. So can you just talk a little bit about next year, our strategic vision about this relationship, just to let the audience understand that this is an ongoing thing. This is not just a one and done kind of opportunity, that this is a multi-year strategy that we have with these organizations.
Yeah. Thanks, Eric. Yeah. So a couple of things, right? So ultimately what we want to do is that we want to broaden and deepen our relationship, right? That's what we want to do. And when I say deepen our relationship, we do have partnership already at the national level with the NGLCC as a presenting sponsor, right? Eric alluded to that earlier. However, we want to do more at the affiliate level, right? We have a partnership in place with Nashville, with Austin, with Boston. The question is, okay, what is the next city that we need to go after? What are the next 5 cities that we need to go talk to? A huge area of interest right now for me is the great city of Atlanta, Georgia, right? Atlanta has a statewide chapter. I believe they launched Pride, Nikki, correct me if I'm wrong, in June of this year, right?
We did. We have a local chapter. Awesome,
right? So Atlanta is on my radar, right, of the next city we want to go to. And when we look at cities, a couple of things are important for us, right? We need, we always kind of take into consideration the size of the chapter. How active are they in the community, right? Because it's one thing for a chapter to exist, it's another thing for the chapter to actually be involved in the community. And as Joe said, one of the reasons why, Nashville right now is buzzing in a positive way is because of all the activity that Joe and his staff, all the activity they have going on in town. Of course, also with Nikki out there supporting that team. So, looking at the size, looking at the level of engagement the chapter has is imperative to us in terms of the next 5 cities we'll go after at the affiliate level. We want to do more from the standpoint of engaging our fellow entrepreneur centers in those cities. If you look at Nashville, we do have a partnership in place, for instance, with the Nashville Entrepreneur Center. And what we've done this year is that, Dell Technologies has actually sponsored their Pitch for Good contest. And those Pitch for Good contests, every single one has a theme to it, right? So in the first half of the year, we had one around Black founders. Once COVID happened, right, we had one around women in technology. And recently we had one around the AI, artificial intelligence. There's an opportunity for us to work with entrepreneur centers in these cities, right? But also to pull in the local LGBT chamber. And we're doing that right now in Nashville in terms of the work we're doing with Joe and also with the Nashville Entrepreneur Center. We want to do more of that in Austin. We want to do more of that in Atlanta, in Boston, right? So that's what I mean by deepening our level of commitment, our level of engagement at that level. When I say broaden, we want to do more mentorships. Whenever we talk to small business owners, right, one thing that people always forget is that sometimes they treat small business owners and entrepreneurs as if they're aliens, right? Like they're from another world. They're human beings, right? They have the regular questions, right? You'll be surprised how many questions we got from entrepreneurs and small business owners about how do I plug in my laptop? How do I connect dual monitors, right? We want to have more workshops whereby we can address some of these pain points and have a conversation around it. We're currently doing that right now as a team, right? In the past 4 or 5 months, my team alone has, overseen roughly about 80 webinars, whereas around thought leadership content, around AR, VR, around how to use the full suite of Microsoft 365 suite of solutions. So there's so much that Dell can provide, not just from providing the hardware, but also providing the right thought leadership. We already have that going on already in Nashville with the Nashville Entrepreneur Center, but we want to do more of that and broaden it out across the cities. Because again, we want to be seen as a thought leader whenever it comes to technology, and we want Dell to be top of mind whenever it comes to any technology needs. So for me and for my team, those are the key things again, right? To broaden our relationship by doing more, providing workshops, but also to kind of deepen it, right? To do more in Nashville, in Austin, in Boston, and then of course to look at cities like Atlanta to figure out what they have going on.
Thanks, Mobolaji. And Nikki, that is a great example of how we do this kind of full circle business opportunity with the chamber. Talk to me a little bit about how you hope to broaden and deepen, to use Mobolaji's terms, with our relationship as a Pride ERG with the local chapters in the next coming years.
Yeah, so Mobolaji talked about it with respect to continuing that affiliate chapter growth. So where we have chapters across the United States, Atlanta is one. We have chapters in other cities. We hope to launch very soon in Canada. So where we've got this presence of ERG members who are engaged and involved in the local communities, we want to join those chapters. We want to take the best practice that we have in Nashville and we want to plop it into another city where we can be on the ground and engaged in the local community and supporting small businesses there, and what the affiliate chapter is doing, what the affiliate chamber rather is doing. So how can we share our best practices and our relationship that we've grown with the Nashville Chamber? How can we share that and help build other chambers and build this best practice? So that's one thing we're going to do. The other thing that I want to do is just to touch back on the training programs that Mobolaji talked about. We have an opportunity, even here in Nashville, Joe, we have an opportunity to bring more of our trainings to the local chapter. So that's one of the things that I want to do to ensure that we are growing here and just increasing our engagement. And then one of the things that I want to share with y'all that I'm super excited about that Pride is going to be doing is in November. We're going to have this virtual small business expo, and we're going to reach out to local small businesses in the communities where we have chapters, and we're going to host a virtual expo. And I am so excited about this because this is one way where we can go to small business owners and say, we support you. We want to educate about you. We want everyone to know. And we're on virtual platforms this year, right now, right? So somebody in Nashville can purchase from somebody in Texas, or Texas can purchase from Clifton and Leopold in Nashville, right? So we want to make sure that we are sharing about these small businesses to increase them and to support them and to help them grow. I mean, it's just such a horrible year for everyone, right? So how can we give back? And that's one way that Pride's going to do that. We're going to have a virtual small business expo to support Shop Small. So
I love
that's
that,
what
Nikki.
we're going to do.
Thank you.
Yep.
And Joe, I was going to go to you anyway, because we've got about 5 minutes left before we turn it over to questions. But I wanted to kind of, using what Nikki just said, that very interesting conversation about the in-person meeting you got to have today. How do we continue to support you on some of these initiatives? You could talk about some of them and to show how your corporate sponsors can continue to deepen our relationships with you going forward would be great. And then we'll hand it over to Dan and to Isabel, and hopefully we'll get some questions out of the audience. Joe?
So right now, support is key. We were lucky enough, due to good fiscal planning and some savings, to be able to stop all membership dues during COVID-19. We did that in February. We did that in March. We're still not charging membership to the small businesses that we support. Our corporate support is getting us through this, and they're supporting us. So financial support is like simple, clear, key to what you can do locally, and hopefully the work of your local chamber is proven and shown. But so financially, our corporate members are more important than ever now to support our small businesses. Our small businesses are hurting. Our 35th small business member just closed up. We're partners with the Entrepreneur Center that Mobilaji spoke about. Their members are our members. We share membership. It's one of the most inclusive and diverse organizations in the community. Our LGBT entrepreneurs have scholarships and opportunities there. This collaboration for Dell between our organization and the EC was clear because we were already working together and we're benefiting from the Dell partnership and membership. But we have a lot of ECs, entrepreneur centers, growth incubation centers. We don't have any services because usually they're not needed and they don't make money for businesses to shut down. And that's what they're needing right now, because due to no fault of their own, because of COVID and the economy, they are having to close their businesses, and their businesses might be tied to their home mortgages. Right now, it's the hardest part of our job is hearing our members come to us saying, help me, I'm not gonna be able to do this anymore, I'm calling it quits. So again, corporate support to a business organization like the Chambers is so pivotal right now if your corporations can do it. I know I'm hearing from our corporate members, collaboration is key. So many corporate members are coming and saying, who else do you work with in the community? We want to know, ROI on the investment in your organization. And if you're working with organizations that they're already working with and supporting, that's even better. So it's something we collaborate here in Nashville. It's a collaborative city, so we're already doing that. But I am stressing to other chambers, this is key to what we need to do. Be working with other organizations that your corporate members support. To touch on one more thing that Nikki mentioned is she talked about the things that the chamber does for Dell, but Dell does a lot for our chambers. Dell does, connected me to the Utah chamber. That support of how we helped Dell get their ERG rolling. Dell allowed Utah chamber to connect with us and say, here's a classic example of another chamber we've been involved in. Talk to their CEO so he can tell you what they're doing, and then you can start that process. That connection and the work that we've done with Utah has been great. I know it's benefited them, and it's benefited me to be able to see what they're doing and collaborate in that way. So our corporate members also connect us to opportunity in a lot of ways. You support us with technology. I'm on a beautiful, laptop now. You support our members, and we know where we go. Corporate support is just key right now for organizations like ours, and connecting you to the opportunities in the community. I know we reached out to our corporate members and said, here's a food drive going on right now. Our LGBT ERGs fill those volunteer opportunities quicker than any other ERG group, out there, because we have that network and we all know each other, and the LGBT ERGs are ready to step in and give back locally in the communities that they're in, because that's where they live. That's their community.
I love that. I love that. Well, so that concludes the panel part of our session today. We have about 30 more minutes that we left to answer questions. We know that building an ROI and some of these programs that can actually bring growth to businesses out there has always been key to why we come to Executive Forum. So we wanted to now open it up for questions. Dan or Isabel, I've looked at the poll. I can't see anything. Has there been any questions coming in? Or do we have any on the chat that we'd like to bring up?
Yeah, Eric, I actually see a couple here on my end, so I can just kind of shout them out here for you. I think one of the first things here that I'm seeing is around the remote-based chapters and just kind of how the support is there for, Nikki talked a lot about community-based and Nashville kind of best practices.
Mm-hmm.
Joe mentioned, the LGBT community kind of knowing each other and that sort of thing. So how does that translate then to kind of a remote setting? I guess I'll throw it to either Nikki or Joe there. Yeah.
Is it, so I don't understand the question. Is it from an ERG standpoint? Like how are we structured across the United States with our ERG, or is it an external question? I'm not sure who asked that question. If they could come on.
It's not specified in here.
Okay.
If whoever asked that question, if you can either in the chat or again.
Let me see if I can try to translate it, because I think I got it. So
Okay.
A lot of chapters, is my guess, is that we're in a workforce. People are all over the place, right? Maybe a lot of companies out there don't have these like built-in Austin and Nashville and Boston like we do. How do we help those remote ERGs connect to local chambers if they don't have a large contingency of employees in order to be able to build this relationship? What kind of advice could we give to those remote ERGs that have to see more success being remote given some of these initiatives? I think it's a great question, right? Given that we are so remote, a lot of ERGs are clear from all over the place and maybe not as concentrated as Dell.
Nikki,
Yeah.
I'm going to brag on Nikki. She's going to take this question because she gets into our Pride ERG and tells all the other corporations what Dell is doing to keep their ERG engaged. They're killing it. So Nikki, I'm bragging on you. Tell
Thanks,
everybody
Joe.
what you've been doing.
Thank you, Joe. So what I would suggest if you're a remote chapter is where you are living, physically living, look and see whether or not there are local LGBT chambers of commerce where you can engage. Business coalitions. A lot of chambers aren't yet officially chambers, and they're business coalitions. And so if you don't have a local chamber, join the business coalition. Just get involved. So reach out, find out ways that you can volunteer, find out what's going on within their programs and how you can engage that way. And then come back to your leader within Pride or your LGBT group or your executive sponsor, and then make the business case. This is why we should be involved. This is what they're doing. This is how we, as an employee resource group, this is how we can engage and have that return on investments. This is what it does. Just create the business case, right? This is what it does for us as a company to be supportive and to be involved. And one of the things that I'll have to share that I'm really proud of is, and Joe, you may have been alluding to this, but in Nashville, the involvement that we have had with the local LGBT chamber has catapulted our involvement and our engagement in Nashville. So the chamber has given us a platform to show that we are supportive, that Dell is all in, and we have a great culture and a great work environment. So it's given us this platform to engage with all these other community organizations and to get involved where Dell hasn't historically been involved, and an opportunity to be a part of some really incredible things. Another board that I sit on is Advancing Women in Nashville, and this was just launched last year. It's a business coalition. It's a coalition of businesses that are representative of female leaders in Nashville who come together, and we host programming each month, very similar to what the Nashville Chamber does with your programming. So it's a way for us to share best practices and just really get embedded within our communities.
And I'm sorry, I understood the question as and you answered it beautifully, but I understood it as, how do you engage your ERG remotely through Zoom? And you guys are doing like sing-alongs and all of these different programs that you have shared with the other ERGs involved in the chamber of, here's how we're keeping our LGBT ERG engaged while we're remote.
And the question is more around, how do we engage remote employees that are part of the remote ERGs in order to engage in their local community? And my friend Paula Getz asked a similar question. She says, you know, you have to require a local chapter to be engaged in the local community. Do you have an assessment of the local LGBT Chamber of Commerce as well? So Joe, could you talk to, maybe through board meetings, or how do you ensure that if a company says, okay, here's my $300, $500, $1,000, $10,000, whatever it might be, how do I assess that we're getting what we need out of that investment from a kind of that you're doing your part? Like, where's that accountability, Paul? I think I'm hearing right between the company and the local chamber in order to ensure that we're assessing what we're getting out of the membership.
Yeah. Not all chambers, not all LGBT chambers are the same. Again, some are volunteer, some have staffs of 20, some have staffs of, we have two staff members, myself and a membership manager, and a lot of volunteers. You should look for programming that is beneficial to you. An ERG group should be top for a corporation. If you're joining, it's again what you're joining it for. If you're joining it for small business support, they should offer educational and small business support. If you're joining it as a networking member and you just want to meet people, they should be offering those events. And if you're a corporate member, they should be, you know, connecting you to other corporations, doing job fairs, have a jobs board, advocating at the state level or the local level for policy. The chambers need to have those programs and do that work. But what I push back on members once they join, or if they're thinking of joining, is here is all of the things that we do. I've listed, you know, a quarter of them on this meeting. We do a lot more. It is up to you as a member to take advantage of what we do. So it is a two-way relationship. In no way do you just join and then the work's done for you. Companies that are engaged like Dell and members that are engaged like Nikki, they benefit from that membership because it's a two-way street. We're in this relationship together. We're helping each other. We're collaborating. But so I would push back on people to say, it is what you make of it. There's got to be something there, but then it is what you make of it. And it's your investment as well in that partnership.
Yeah, and then so the follow-up question to that, which I'll go ahead and answer for Mobilaji a little bit, but if Mobilaji, if you want to add, please do. The question is, how do you measure and what are KPIs used in order to do that? So I look to two things on this one. One is more around what we call opportunity to see, which is a metric around attendance. So when we do these events, where we do these engagements, the only question I ask is, how many members did we see? How many members did we see? How many members do we see? Because while I love that Mobilaji and Nikki continue to evolve this relationship with Joe, what I ultimately care about from a business standpoint is how many of their end users and are we able to get our message to? So we're constantly trying to hold the chambers accountable to attendance, because the more members that we have access to, the more likelihood we'll get a return on that. And then the other KPI, which is really simple, is that Mobilaji has a quota, right, by local chamber. And so his quota is set on, for every dollar we invest, he has to return at least $2 to $2.50 for every dollar we invest. So his quota is based on that return. And you know, his engagement and what he's doing and his programs that he runs with the chamber is all about him retiring that quota. And so, you know, I run a sales business, so my sales team is on quota. That's how they're measured. So it really has worked really well, and it really drives the engagement because it is somewhat indirect. But we notice that these programs, these webinars, the more access we get to their members, the more likely we see the engagement go up from a purchase standpoint. And what we do internally, just as a best practice to everyone that's selling a widget that is on the phone or a service, every LGBT chamber has what we call an account ID. And based on that account ID, we're able to measure every single time one of those members buy, because they will enter that ID either when they buy something online or talk to a sales advisor, in order for us to keep track of everything that they buy, so that we can measure all the way to the end user what chamber are they a member of, and what has that chamber ultimately purchased based on those account IDs. So we have a measurement system internally to ensure that we can kind of keep up on some of these KPIs.
And that's a very specific return on investment that you're looking for, number to number, return on, $1 to $2 to $1. You have to look at it though, and why did you join the chamber? If it's to grow your ERG and we're bringing you that, and you've been able to find the policies other companies are doing and implement your ERG better, your ROI is different to look at. We have some corporate members that join us and support us specifically for our advocacy work at the state level, because they look at it as, if a discriminatory anti-LGBT bill passes in Tennessee, I will have a harder time attracting and retaining talent to my company. And that is what they're concerned about, and that is what they're tracking. So the ROI is, we didn't have a bill pass, so it doesn't harm your ability to attract and retain talent. It really is like, what did you join the chamber for? And what you want is, you join the chamber for one thing, but your investment and your return is coming into different areas of your company.
Yeah, and Joe, I think that's a really important point, because in some of these smaller chambers, like Utah, for the example that you and Nikki talked about, it's going to be hard to get a business ROI on that because the membership is so small. But the hope is that over time, you invest in that chamber, you do all these wonderful things about killing legislation, things like that. I shouldn't say killing, that's bad HR word, but helping legislation not get passed, in order to build up that relationship to what you all have in Nashville, that ultimately leads to the KPIs that I gave to Mobilage on the business side. So again, it's purely all completely engaged, both from an ERG standpoint and from a business standpoint. It is a complete win. All right, Isabel or Dan, any other questions for our panelists?
No, it's pretty quiet.
I see one that says,
Wait,
how do you reach out to tell other employees to convince them to become an ally? I'm going to take that from the chamber side, and then Nikki, I'm sure you can speak to it from the internal side of employees. But it starts with a relationship. So Nikki came to us at a networking event. We have some people come to us at the ERG group. It's really about that initial relationship. Education is key to everything. The more you educate and talk about this, and then going and talking to key people. And I say it's like how you're going to pay for that membership. So let's talk to talk to the head of your public policy, talk to the head of your marketing, or the LGBT person in marketing that looks at those dollars, talk to HR and the ERG, build that coalition of key players in a company, and good diversity and inclusion policy in corporations starts at the top, so your CEO should be invested in it, and then educate them and all the key players on why this is important. It's an important investment, and here's where we're going to benefit from it with this investment. Is how we work. Absolutely.
Nikki, I've got a great question for you in the chat box.
Okay.
From my good friend Alex at Bank of America. Hello, Alex. He asks, how do you get buy-in from ERG members who joined for volunteer aspects and not for the business of selling? So how do we use the chamber relationship to engage ERG members, not from a business side, but more from either an advocacy side or a volunteer side? Can you just talk a little bit about that, Nikki?
Yes, I would love to, because that's some of the examples that Joe had talked about as well. So the chamber hosts events. Well, this year we're not hosting them, but we have hosted events. So Taste is a perfect example, Joe, where it's a fundraiser for the LGBT chamber. We do it every year, minus this year, where local companies support dollars wise and volunteer wise, and then we excuse me, then small businesses, local caterers, restaurants, chefs, they donate their product, their food, and things like that. And then everyone has a great night tasting and whatnot. So for Dell, how we use that to our benefit is, so we invest and we sponsor that event, and we do it locally with local dollars. So we have a site budget and we donate and sponsor that event at the local level because it gives us exposure locally. So we are our logos on all the communications, we're involved in the social media support, but then from a volunteer standpoint, we can go back to the chamber and say, okay, how many volunteers do you need to put on this event? We need people for registration. We need people to help with the silent auction. We need people who can make sure that folks are in the right place whenever they're getting ready to go up on stage to do an announcement. All sorts of things, help with the caterers, load in, load out, all these things. So we at Dell, we go back to our local team and say, and we share community involvement opportunities. And this is one, we say, how, you know, we've got this event, Dell's sponsoring it. These are ways that we can volunteer, and we can also earn volunteer hours at Dell. That's something that we have as volunteer hours, and that accumulate over a quarter for a donation to a local charity. So we use those opportunities to engage our local team members to volunteer. That is one example that we do that is with Taste. A host of other events, our Pride in Business, not Pride in Business, sorry, our business networking hours. So we, the LGBT Chamber has a monthly happy hour where we come together. This year we're doing it virtually, but in the past we've done it in person. So Dell will sponsor and provide volunteers to work that event at the registration table, make sure folks are badged, you've got your drink tickets, all sorts of things. So it's these partnerships that we utilize for the volunteering piece. Alec, I hope that answers your question.
We've also called on you to say, like, there's a teen LGBT group in town and they're doing a fundraiser, or they need volunteers to stuff food bags. We'll put it out to our corporate ERGs, and Dell is always like first in line to say, we'll do that.
Yeah, we do mailings. We, on
site.
Mailings. Yeah.
They mail like stuffed envelopes and put membership stickers in envelopes every January for us and mail them. They do the manpower behind the mailing of our membership sticker. But Nikki, I want you to touch on your day on the Hill, because Dell is special in a company that advocates. It takes it to the next level of advocacy. There's a lot of corporations, members of ours, that sign the letter saying we believe in equality, don't pass anti-LGBT legislation. Dell takes it a step further with their Day on the Hill.
We do. So we partner in Nashville, and we do this in Austin, in some of the other cities. But we work with the local lobbying groups. So in Nashville, it's, oh my gosh, just escaped me. Equality Texas in Texas. My Nashville folks. Tennessee, thank you, Equality Project. So we work closely with them, and we go and we volunteer during lobby days. And at Dell, we encourage our team members to wear your Dell t-shirt. So when you're going and you're lobbying on the Hill, we partner for lobby days, and we have a group that goes out. We're all in our Dell t-shirts, and we're meeting with folks in the community. We are talking to legislators, people in office, council members, and we're sharing why some of these bills are, because they're not welcoming, it's not appropriate, right? It's not good for business. We also story tell. So we tell our personal stories about, our involvement at work and being out and being open, and, why that's important. And we want to live in a city that mirrors things like that. So we use storytelling as a huge way to lobby. So it's just getting involved in lobbying activities in our communities where we have opportunities to do so, to, hopefully lobby against some of these bills that are out there.
I think it's a great, absolutely. And I want to go back to Alex's question. Another opportunity I have stuck in my head is, just because of what I do, I've just been recently asked to sit on the board of the actual Austin Chamber. And ironically enough, the president of Austin Bank of America is the chair of that board. And one of the things that we talked about within Austin is doing more with the main chamber, with the LGBT chamber, around events and around volunteering and doing things around just overall bringing business and more being bigger in the community. And I think that it's also really important, especially with our big company, is having a big positive brand in the communities we serve is really important. And there's a ton of opportunity for the LGBT chamber and the actual chamber to work together on some of these events and showing, especially if you're a big name like a Bank of America or a Dell or a Oracle or whoever you might be, to continue to show up and be present in a lot of those events. Because the major, one of the major initiatives of these chambers, whether that's the LGBT or the actual the city chamber, is to bring businesses and to support businesses within that community to help the economy of that community. And if it wasn't for those communities, us big businesses wouldn't be there, right? It's been those communities supporting our businesses have been such a big part. So another opportunity, I think, in some of these local areas, especially if your LGBT chamber is small, is the main chamber is always looking for opportunities to reach out to these minority-owned small businesses and do events together and things like that. Joe, I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit on your relationship with the city chamber, but I think that's just another opportunity where big businesses are already part of those city chambers, and there's a lot of opportunity to kind of do some mixed work there. Joe, did you want to add to that at all?
Austin does it right. You have a very strong city chamber and a very strong LGBT chamber. There's lots of collaboration. Their CEO came from the Austin chamber, and they're doing it right. We partner with our area chamber. We're involved with them heavily on economic and community development. But I would say, again, every chamber is different. Our focus is pushing for LGBT equality in the workplace, connecting our corporate members to that, advocating for an open and welcoming Tennessee and the city, supporting our small businesses in the ways that, educational ways that we can. Our programming is very similar, but it's very different. We collaborate and we work together, but we have corporate members that are members of ours and not the area chamber. So every city, I would say, is different. Hopefully everybody's collaborating in whatever location you're in. But look at those relationships. We touched on this, but I think Paula's question is, looking at the chamber, what they're doing, what the different organizations are doing. What do we spend on Pride, a weekend of Pride, versus what we spend for a year-long membership is something that I'll push again. I'm not trying to take money from anybody, but I always ask corporations to think about the spending and the ROI and the investment and what you're getting out of some of these relationships. I'm not afraid to say that, because there are times where a company will invest in something and for a lot, and then something else for a little, but your return on investment might be even more with the smaller investment. So look at your relationships that you have as an organization and see what the return is.
Yeah, I mean, we have those very uncomfortable conversations every year, and yes, ensuring that we have really good connections with our members and doing fun things is important. But where you can think about making an impact of your brand within a community like the small business community or the overall community where you sit, I think could even make bigger inroads for your brand in that community. So I thank you for that, Joe, for sure. All right, any final questions, Dan or Isabel, in the poll section that we need to cover? I said, okay. I think we're good. All right. With 7 minutes left, I want to say a big, huge thank you from Dell Technologies to our good friend Joe Woolley, the Nashville LGBT Chamber of Commerce, Mobilaji for all the work that you do with the Chamber, and Nikki for just making sure that it all happens. You all are true advocates in figuring out how our ERGs and our companies work together to do ROIs across so many different aspects of our business. And we really do appreciate the good work that you've done. And I hope everybody enjoyed the panel today. And thank you so much for being here. Have a good day, everybody. Have a good conference. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.